All right. Enough yawning, Dominic.
Yeah,
It's,
time to take a nap, huh?
it's not a good time to sleep because we're live.
Cheers.
All right.
It's gonna be a cup of tea for you.
How you been?
I've been great, man. I'm doing really well. I'm celebrating life because life is really good.
Yeah.
Really rich and good right now.
Celebrating life. That's the way to move forward. So today we decided we're going to talk about this big subject.
Oh yeah, it's a big topic. It's called the hero's journey, and this is something that everybody goes on. You know, whether you are aware of it or not. It's kind of like a cycle. It's kind of like a pattern of life and progression that we're going to explore today. We're doing some exploration.
Sounds good. Let's just begin with saying that that is the purpose of life.
Yes.
Is it accurate to say that?
Yeah, you could say that.
Okay.
It's to go on the hero's journey.
Mm-hmm. All right. So, and if it is the purpose of life, which means that following that journey, we experience our fulfillment and bliss.
Totally. That's where it leads.
Okay. So we got two things. And the third thing, I think, is it accurate to say that by following your journey, by following your bliss, it's not about the destination, but it's about the process?
Totally. That's absolutely accurate. And that's another thing because we're never going to get there, so to speak. Where life does not end.
Okay.
You know, we're going to go through thousands of heroes' journeys in our life. But overall, this path, which is the path forward, that's the only way to get to that bliss and fulfillment.
So I believe Helen Keller said, we just find out.
We just looked it up. It was fun.
So Helen Keller said that life is either daring adventure or nothing at all. What do you think about that?
Well, it's true because you do have the choice. You do have the choice whether or not to make it an adventure or to stay pretending that you're not playing the hero's journey.
Right.
You know,
What happens if you do that?
If you stay put, you're gonna feel a lot of suffering.
Okay.
You're
Bango.
Yeah, you're gonna suffer.
Yeah.
It's gonna suck.
Okay, so for people listening here, this is a big subject. It's something that we may not talk about it a lot, but we're talking about the solution to suffering.
Yes, this is one model that we can use to help us understand our own suffering, and also to keep us on the path towards bliss, towards success, towards basically anything that we want in life, but more so just consistent in our growth, you know, because there are a lot of ways that we can feel stuck in life.
Right.
There are a lot of times that we can face shadows.
Right.
But when we follow the hero's path, when we follow the path of the hero's journey, we always wind up, first of all, when we follow the hero's journey, we're framing life in an affirmative way.
Right.
When we realize that it's not us against our problems necessarily, it's us on a path of ascension. You know.
Right. So also, given all that information that we just discussed, would you say that it's accurate to say that if you're not happy, you must be not on your hero's journey?
Right. Well, you're in one of the phases of the hero's journey, and you're deliberating probably, or you're unaware. You're unaware.
Yeah.
You know, you're not sure what's going to happen next.
Okay. But then also it's not to say that you don't have the challenges on the hero's journey. There's a lot of challenges and a lot of emotional experiences that we experience that may not be pleasant, but they're very different from the pain and suffering we experience when we're not even participating in it. Yeah.
Yeah, well, really, it's kind of like, you know, if you clean your kitchen every week, it's still going to get dirty. But if you only clean your kitchen once a year, it's going to be filthy. Right. So I think it's the difference between consistency on your path that makes a huge difference, because 90% of the time, if you clean your kitchen every week or whenever you clean it, you're going to have 90% clean kitchen. But if you only clean it every year, or whenever you finally get around to it, you're going to be suffering. You're going to be all this filth and distraction.
And how many people are out there are following some sort of a machine, some sort of industrial complex, rather than their own journey that is specialized for them. And so we have this dynamic where a lot of people are unhappy and they're put into this situation where they have to do something that they don't enjoy.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's also being sold to us that is normality, that is okay. That if you don't enjoy this, there's some neurotransmitter disbalance in your brain, and we're gonna fix you with the pills.
Right. Yeah, and I feel like most of us at one time or another, we find ourselves in some kind of machine like that. Yeah. And I think the trick is to connect to your hero's journey, to connect to your purpose, your why, your soul's calling towards something, and understanding what you really want out of life and what you really enjoy. Mm-hmm. And then once you're in the machine, but you can find a path out, because that process of connecting to that and keeping that as your priority, your main, where you're pouring your energy, that's going to slowly ease you out of this game.
Mm-hmm. How do we exit this machine?
That's a good question. I think that there are many ways to exit the machine, and that ultimately it becomes a game of, okay, so one way is meditation. Okay. One method, let's say, of beginning to exit the machine is the path of self-knowledge.
Great advice.
Yeah. So if you start with meditation or anything that helps you know yourself, whether it's journaling, but you build that space for yourself to get clear on the vision and to get clear and tapped into the energy of who you really are and why you really came here, that's going to begin to shift the way you interact with the machine. And gradually over time, you're going to see little cracks in the machine where you can act, you can take different steps to build more of your own, whether you want to build your own business or whether you want to just totally get off the grid, whatever your calling is to do, you're going to see the opportunities because you're focused on what you want instead of coming home every night from this job that you don't like and then distracting yourself.
Okay, so what do you have to say for somebody, let's say, who works at this type of position and they don't like it and they don't enjoy it and they don't see it as their life purpose? But perhaps they intuitively know what's their true purpose, and perhaps they're telling themselves that, there's no way I can be an actor. There's no way I can be, this or that. Like, what kind of advice do you have for a person who intuitively knows what they would be great at, but there's that fear holding them back and keeping them in that machine?
Totally. Well, the important part of that is to take the first step, whatever it is, because that the reason you're living is because you have that passion. The reason you're going to work is that so that you can get up and keep dreaming about that thing that you want to create. And it's okay, because this job that you don't like is a step on that path towards whatever it is that will really fulfill you. So investing in that, in the small ways first, when you have the time and energy, because we all have free time, we all have free energy. Even when we're really, really booked, we can find a little space. We can get up a little earlier, we can stay up a little later, just to work on that passion. And
you recommend to use that time for meditation? For any time you have, any spare time we have, and no matter how busy we are, the first step is to use that time, that little spare time, whether it's 10, 15 minutes, for meditation.
Sure, at the start, and build a consistent meditation practice. Absolutely. Everybody can hugely benefit from that. And once you have a consistent meditation practice, once you have that motivation that you've been able to work through your beliefs a little bit more, and you understand it's actually possible if you do want to be an actor, if you do want to whatever else that it is you want to do. Once you have that vision clear, then you can begin practicing that vision in your life already. Okay. I think this is something people get caught up in, is they think they don't have the time, or they think they're going to do it in 3 months, but 3 months is always 3 months never comes. You have to take little steps that'll make that 1 hour turn into a 2 hour, turn to a 3 hour.
Microprogressions.
Yes, microprogressions.
Yeah. And then during that time, when we meditate, there's a lot of insights that come along.
Oh, yeah.
And also, we dare to dream.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so this is a great window. I mean, the first step is to meditate a little bit and make it as a regular practice,
Yeah.
and then dare to dream.
Yeah.
Like literally have daydreams about the success that you want to have, right?
This is huge. There's a lot to unpack here. So a lot of people don't want to start meditating because it might just suck at first.
Right.
You know, we have to accept that don't have expectations.
Why does it suck?
Well, it sucks because you have to take charge of your mental habits at first.
Mm-hmm.
You have to realize, okay, I'm thinking about my groceries. I'm thinking about this person that broke my heart. I'm thinking about all these different things.
Mm-hmm.
And these are just emotional charges that have built up, and they're running your life.
Mm-hmm.
They're on autopilot. And once you take that courageous step to just sit and watch all these things unfold, you're going to start interrupting the programming
Mm-hmm.
with consciousness. With the light of your awareness, you're intercepting this feedback loop that happens on all these different levels, all these different habits of energy that are moving through you.
So you're saying I'm sitting here meditating and I'm beginning to meditate.
Yeah,
I'm
and it
from
sucks. You're distracted. You're like,
Right.
oh shit, I want to just
I have
do
like
anything but this.
right. I have 9 to 5 worries. I have all sorts of things that popping into my mind, and I'm
Yeah.
sitting here, and then the thought comes to my mind saying like, "Why are you wasting your time? What is this?" But what you're saying is that sitting there watching these thoughts go by is a first step, and that there is a very peaceful and quiet moment after that, and having faith in that there will be that moment where the thoughts stop, and then you are in this floaty trance-like state
Yeah.
where there are no limits and everything is great, and you feel
Yeah.
at total peace. From that point, then you get to get the control
Yeah.
back in your life.
You can be meditating for 10 years and it still might take you some time when you sit down to get to that state. It's more like, or you could start meditating this week and you could drop into that in less than 5 minutes.
Right.
So to not have that expectation of every time I sit down to meditate, I'm going to transcend and have total bliss all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible to do that. With consistent practice, it's possible to really slip in and out of that trance really easily. And yet, at first, it's a disclaimer. It's important for people to realize it is going to work for you, but you have to invest a little bit of time. It's a practice. It's like,
Okay.
Yeah.
Just like going to the gym at first,
totally.
you can barely lift up the weight.
Yeah, you're
but
going to be
then
sore the next day. But yeah, it's worth the work. You're building muscles.
Right. So you are essentially exercising your mind, exercising your consciousness.
Yeah. So I used to work with kids with autism and ADHD, and basically one of the most revolutionary therapies I learned about is basically instituting mindfulness for these kids.
Mm-hmm.
Exercises that increase their focus on their proprioception, their body awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and their emotional level, depending on what their level of severity of their illness is.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, it's something that we all have. There's a part of our brain.
We're all a little bit ADHD.
We all get distracted. We all can go into this. We can all let emotions possess us in a way. And I just thought this was an interesting example because for these kids who process the world so much differently than we do, the same principle applies. There's a part of the brain that helps you basically be in the witness of everything that's happening. There's an actual circuit in your brain that directs everything. And it's basically what you strengthen when you meditate.
Mm-hmm.
It's this part of the brain that is you're sort of in the captain's chair.
Mm-hmm.
You can see when the emotion comes, you can see when the habit comes, you can see, and then you decide to respond instead of react.
Mm-hmm.
It's not running you.
So would you say that in that moment you are dissociating from your ego self and associating yourself with the witness self?
Sure, you're kind of stepping back, you're zooming out a little bit.
Yeah.
Something that's always there.
Right. And this interesting thing is that ego, when you're in the ego, it cannot see itself, right?
Yeah.
Is that true?
Yeah, you have a blind spot.
You have
usually,
a blind spot.
because you're really identified
Yeah.
with a pattern.
Yeah.
You're like, oh shit.
You think you are that pattern.
You think you are the pattern, but you're not the pattern.
You're not the pattern.
You're not the pattern. The pattern is a part of you that is learned to protect itself.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
So the lesson is there that we're not who we think we are a lot of times.
Right.
And then that we have that space in our mind where we can associate with a different part of ourselves and be that.
Yes. And make decisions from that place.
Okay.
You can understand why these things have been running your life so far, and you can begin to consciously rewrite them.
Mm-hmm.
You can use conscious languaging patterns throughout your life to begin to rewrite these beliefs that you have that tell you, oh, I like guitar, but I suck at guitar.
Okay, so
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I like guitar, but I suck. So, but by getting to that point, then you have more accurate view of the world,
Yeah.
and you are much more honest with yourself and what you're capable of.
Yeah.
So then we're going back to this advice of spending whatever free time you have meditating
Mm-hmm.
will bring you into having confidence pursuing your soul purpose.
Yeah, because at first, and still to this day, all of us, we have addictions to our emotions, like physically, neurologically. When we have a pattern of response in our lives, our body is going to reinforce the habit that it's most familiar with. So when you sit in meditation for a long enough time, you can begin to rewrite the wiring in your brain that basically tells the body how it's going to respond to situations. So the longer you sit identified with your witness consciousness, your who you really are.
I like that.
Yeah.
Quitting addiction to ego.
Yes. Quitting your addiction to your ego. Because
Because
otherwise,
ego loves emotions. It just basks in all sorts of suffering and pain.
Yeah.
It makes no sense, but that's what ego loves to do.
Yeah, exactly. And then sometimes it feels good to be addicted to those emotions.
I love that you mentioned that. It
Yeah.
feels good to be a victim.
It can. It feels bad, but it also feels good sometimes.
Like, let's just address this little issue that
Yeah.
it is possible,
Yeah.
possible, that we as humans may be addicted to our struggles. That
For sure.
there is some sort of reward there by playing
Yeah.
a victim card. There is an instant gratification reward by, for example, whining and complaining and venting.
Totally.
There is an instant gratification reward, and that only reinforce the worldview of a victim.
Yeah.
Whereas meditation is the other way to deal with that.
Of course.
So I could just go and whine and complain to my friend, and my friend's gonna say, "Oh yeah, of course you're right. You deserve to quote unquote suffer because you sound right, and I'm your friend, and I'm gonna support your suffering."
Of course. Yeah.
But there's another side of the coin where
coin.
instead of going to the friend, we go inside and we meditate and we find that point of awareness of a witness.
Something that's really important here is to realize that we always have the choice. We always have the choice. Do we want to play the victim game, right? Do we want to allow ourselves to be identified with that? Because, until we step into the seat of meditation and self-awareness, we don't know why we're addicted to that.
Yeah.
And we know that it feels good, but we don't know why it feels good.
Right.
And we also don't know what is the cost benefit of staying there.
Yeah.
But when you step out of that, you can say, okay, I get why I like this, but there's a big world out there that of possibility when I'm not putting my energy into the things that are self-soothing and self-comforting. I'm now putting my energy into what I actually want.